toy with. I would never fuss with somebody that.
You ready to roll? Here we go. All right, good evening and welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, August 22nd. I now call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Here.
Councilmember Arona,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas,
Here?
Mayor Urick.
Here. And Councilmember Thomas, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand, place your hand over your heart, and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on. Presentations. Do we have a presentation?
We have one presentation today called Safer from Wildfire, and it's being presented by a representative from California Department of Insurance, and they're on Zoom with us.
Hi, can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. I'll wait for the PowerPoint to be on.
If you can share your screen, that would be great.
Oh, yes. Thank you. One moment to get up. And hopefully I can get a confirmation that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty then. So thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members, for allowing me to join you for your meeting today. My name is Zulema Delgadillo, and I serve as an outreach analyst in the Department of
What
Insurance.
time would you like your event to start?
Was that
Ms.
directed to
Delbert,
me?
that was, I don't believe that was directed to you. You're not sure what that was. Wasn't
Okay,
on your end?
No.
Okay.
Allow me to do a little research.
Can we mute
Think there's-
everybody else on Zoom?
Regarding flower arrangements, and I'll get back to you by tomorrow evening.
Mr. Ramirez, would you please mute your microphone?
Mr.
Yes.
Ramirez, you are unmuted. No, mute Rick Ramirez down there. There you go.
Okay,
Go ahead.
perfect. I think I'm back on and unmuted. Okay, perfect. So, like I mentioned, thank you for having me here today. My name is Zulema Delgadillo, and I serve as an outreach analyst in the Department of Insurance's Community Relations and Outreach branch. So I'm happy to be here with you today and give you and your constituents an update on the work we have been doing on your behalf, of course. But first, I would like to start by giving you an overview of the Department of Insurance and the role of the Insurance Commissioner. Currently, the Insurance Commissioner is Ricardo Lara. Under his direction, the department uses his authority to protect Californians from insurance rates that are excessive, inadequate, or unfairly discriminatory. Of course, to make sure insurance companies have enough funds to pay claims, set standards for agents and broker licensing, perform market conduct reviews of insurance companies, ensuring they are compliant and in good standing, of course, resolve consumer complaints, and investigate and prosecute insurance fraud. The one thing that we cannot do, however, is require or compel insurance companies to sell insurance to a particular person or community. So as you can see on the map, it's a map of California and some of the areas we have hit. And of course, what we've seen is that California's devastating wildfires have been a call to action. We're using every tool available to improve insurance for Californians. But these last 3 years, after 10 of the most devastating wildfires in our state's history, we have prioritized meeting with wildfire survivors and Californians affected by the wildfires across the state. The commissioner had us get out of our offices and get out and meet people like you. So through this time, we've met with more than 25,000 people in 40 counties to specifically hear all your concerns around availability and affordability of homeowners insurance, because we need to take it all into consideration as we look for solutions. So, and of course, the very first thing we learned is that the wildfires isn't just in a Northern California issue anymore, it's a statewide issue. And since 2019, we have held 50 events specifically to discuss these issues. So learning from you and from our first responders, we tackled the immediate need. The commissioner started working with the legislature on laws that help wildfire survivors, including increasing payouts and benefits, as well as increasing coverage for building code upgrades. If consumers were experiencing losses, they should receive the benefits they paid for with their coverage, of course. So we also implemented a law that the commissioner wrote in while he was in the Senate, giving temporary protection to more than 4 million residential policyholders in areas that the governor declared a wildfire emergency. This law gives 1 year of protection, regardless of whether you suffered a loss. This is helping to give people security and stabilize the market. Additionally, we increased the non-renewal notice insurers must give you from 45 days to 75 days now, allowing more time to find an alternative insurance following a non-renewal. So we also ordered improvements to the FAIR Plan. As you know, the FAIR Plan is the insurer of last resort. What you may not know is the FAIR Plan is not a state agency, nor is it a public entity. It is a fire insurance pool comprised of all insurers doing business in California. The FAIR Plan was established by the statute in August 1968. And when the commissioner took office, the FAIR Plan's coverage limits had not been increased in decades, while the consumer price index had doubled over time, of course. So he ordered increased coverage limits for both dwelling coverage and commercial policies, giving people twice the coverage they had before. In addition, we worked with the legislature to authorize coverage for farms, wineries, and other agricultural businesses, which were previously prevented under law from accessing the FAIR Plan. And finally, the commissioner ordered the FAIR Plan to offer a comprehensive option to homeowners alongside its standard limited policy. But of course, the FAIR Plan unfortunately sued us, but a judge upheld the commissioner's authority, and they appealed, but he will not stop until the consumers have this option. And you can see on your screen right now the difference. The blue graph is the coverage limits in 1990s, and the increase is the orange bar in 2022 coverage limits. Okay, so there's a lot more work. I know there's a lot more work that we need to do, but in our meetings with communities and leaders in the space, Commissioner Lara realized everyone was working on this issue on their own, tackling their area of expertise, but not necessarily considering all the other issues policyholders have to deal with. So he brought all of Governor Newsom's emergency response and readiness agencies together to create the Safer from Wildfires framework with the feedback we received from the people we met with. So these standards are the first of its kind effort to certify achievable and effective strategies for homes, businesses, and communities. So let's go over the 3 steps or areas of protection under the Safer from Wildfires framework. We call it the 1, 2, 3. So number 1 is protecting the structure. This means giving you specific things you can do to ensure your roof walls, vents, windows are upgraded to be safer from wildfires, including Class A fire-rated roofs, maintaining a 5-foot ember resistance zone around your home, enclosed eaves, and upgraded windows. That is number 1. Number two, it's protecting your immediate surroundings, such as your backyard or other outbuildings. And you can see the list of the specific things you can do on this slide. And finally, step number three is involving the entire community in fire protection. That includes programs like FireWise, which brings neighbors together to protect their homes. This community-wide part is critical. By working together, we can do much more than we can on our own to make our communities safer from this, with this new framework. There's nothing more frustrating than you doing all of the work to ensure your home is safe, but still getting dropped because your neighbor's home is a fire hazard, unfortunately. So, so to ensure the success of the Safer from Wildfire framework, Commissioner Lara introduced new regulations based on a really simple concept. Again, coming directly from consumers we have met across the state. When you do the work, you should see the reward. Very simple. By making homes and businesses safer, we can bring risks down and bring costs down also. So the Commissioner's actions are focused on safety and transparency. His new regulations do this in 3 ways. First is pricing. He's requiring insurance companies to incorporate the Safer from Wildfire framework that I just went over into their pricing, driving down costs for consumers, and ensuring, and the insurance companies will have to then submit new rate values that recognize the safety. The second is transparency. Consumers will receive their property's wildfire risk score and the reasons for it, and the Department of Insurance will have oversight. And finally, the right of appeal is key. Consumers will be able to appeal their risk determination when they have done the work. And just a little bit of an update where it is right now, where the regulations stand right now. The Commissioner hosted a hearing to finalize the regulations for the Safer from Wildfires on April 13th of this year. The California Department of Insurance legal branch is researching and reviewing the findings to ensure that there are no detrimental unintended consequences to any of the regulations. And then the California Department of Insurance will then submit the final regulations to the Office of Administrative Law for approval. Once approved, the California Department of Insurance will submit the new regulations to the insurance industry, and the press release will notify the public. Each insurance company will then need to submit their plans to implement these, and once they are approved by the department, they will then be in place. So we're expecting this whole process to be done by January 2023. So because of the department's actions, we saw insurance non-renewals fall by 10% in the last data, the biggest drop in years. Additionally, because of our oversight and advocacy, we have 19 companies and counting offering discounts already for home hardening actions for those with wildfire risk. These companies represent 40% of the market. So when these regulations are implemented, we're hoping it will reach 100%. So that concludes my presentation. I want to remind you that we're here to help you with any of your insurance questions. Please call us at 800-927-4357 or go to our website at insurance.ca.gov. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Any questions?
I have a
Councilmember Clark.
question. Hi, I'm Robert Clark. With discounts available to 2 out of every 5 consumers, does that discount come from the insurance company's savings because they're paying out less? Or where do those discounts come from? Who pays for that?
So the discounts I mentioned, those are for the home hardening actions. So those are for those in wildfire risk areas. So it is directly a discount from the company itself, the insurance company itself.
Because they're paying out less because these homes are protected, or because their shareholders are paying for this discount?
Well, it's because of the home hardening actions. Because, of course, if you mitigate your risk, we're seeing them offering discounts for people who are actually mitigating the risk.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I had one related to that the fact that you require insurance companies to factor the consumers' and businesses' wildfire safety actions into their pricing. Is there anything that residents in the city of Solvang can do to help mitigate that? For instance, showing that we have an emergency plan, something along that line to help our residents with their insurance pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be step number 3 from our framework. And definitely that's something we definitely want it to be a community effort. So any kind of fire-wise or any kind of already built-in standards you have as a community, as a city, is only going to increase or decrease the wildfire risk than for decreasing the policies or the non-renewals in that area. So definitely it is a community-wide effort. And once we see these regulations implemented, that is only going to benefit you as a community. So anything you already have implemented or you see you could improve on, definitely recommend doing that. And then your community can only use that when the regulations are finally implemented in January.
All right. And then lastly, if any of our residents have an appeal based on some termination, because most of our area is pretty well protected as far as a community, that we do have a few spots where they're kind of, I guess I would consider more in the rural area.
Yeah.
But if they happen to have a problem with getting rejected on their policy, who do they call? Do they for the appeal? Is that you, or is that the insurance company?
So once the regulations are implemented, and consumer I think until they are actually published, I can't really say exactly, but we're expecting for the consumer to need to send proof to their carrier, so whatever measures they have taken to mitigate the risk, and it would then be up to the carrier as to the method of inspection. So maybe someone will need receipt. They'll maybe require receipts or photos, or send their own inspectors. And if they want to appeal, that would be, again, once the regulations are submitted, there'll be a lot more detail on specific ways to do it, but it would be with our department.
All right. And then the last question is, do you have a list of the 19 insurance companies for cost comparisons for our consumers, residents? And where do they find that?
That would be on our website, insurance.ca.gov. There is on the homepage, there is a wildfire recovery button you can click on. That page has a lot of different tools, and towards the bottom you'll be able to see that actual the listing by zip code. You can use zip code, or those areas are listed as well. So different ways that you can find that information. But I can definitely follow up with staff with those specific links.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
And that's my last question. There's no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to public communications. Madam Clerk, would you please read the rules?
The council welcomes your input. This time you may address the council on items not on the agenda and on consent. Time limit is 3 minutes. We will start with in-person public comments first.
All right, then I will do my best to try to limit it to 3 minutes. Thank you. I have a couple of speaker slips here. The first is David Brown.
Thank you, council members, for hearing me out today. I just wanted to present myself, and after a few weeks of encouragement, enthusiasm, and the like, I've not submitted my paperwork to become a council candidate for the 3rd District. And so I'm here doing a little reconnaissance, making sure that what items come up are indeed pertinent and germane. And I wanted to thank you for what you do, and looking forward to enthusiastic, positive, and energetic campaign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Michael Miller.
Michael Miller. I wasn't going to actually talk. I worked on some statements today, and I was not satisfied with the time and the contents. I delivered a paper to Ms. Orona, and that's the only reason why I'm talking to you, because I didn't make it clear that I was hoping that she would maybe consider taking action on this, no matter what my circumstances were. I can read you one of the openings that I actually didn't decide on that I was going to do. Local and national government corruption and ineptitude in conjunction with civilian criminal miscreants and to various degrees intellectually challenged is addressed here with substantial evidence and context items omitted due to the 3-minute time limit. And I don't think that anything else is really appropriate at this time to discuss about that. There have already been a few instances while I've been in Solvang just the last month that I was going to address. I recently submitted 25 pages to the clerk related to a variety of items over the last decade or so related to what I'm going to talk about here. I can't use the internet. I can't get things out. My library usage is spoofed, and that is witnessed, and those are part of the pages I submitted to the clerk. I was not able to follow up with her to find out what happened because of that. The paper that I gave Mr. Rona is something that anybody could address, even people that are watching. The World Association of Scholars, additional element, countries have the option for 2 slots. One is a government individual. I'll be making some statements in front of the Planning Commission because they are now involved, and if I must, I'll follow up with the council later, but if that can go public, I'm thinking that it's going to help the Ukraine situation because I'm blacklisted in the music industry. My song, Taiwan's Under Strike, has 5 languages, and it's part of the reason that Trump ran to cover up some issues. And if that information, which is really basic common sense for a global union organization, if that's out there, it could actually resolve the situation, and I'm not taking any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I don't have any other speaker slips. Is there anyone in the audience that hasn't submitted one that would like to speak on items that are on the consent agenda but not on regular agenda? Seeing none, move it back out in Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to make any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. And moving now on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I would start by once again reminding, if we can bring my slides up, everybody of the fact that we have State of the City coming up. This would be my last reminder as the event is taking place this Wednesday. So the State of the City will take place at the Court Craft House at the Cork. The event itself will be from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and the doors will be opening at 11 a.m. Our key speaker is Controller E, who will be the key speaker opening the ceremony. I also want to continue to encourage everybody to submit their responses in our efforts to gain community input on the concept of Downtown European Plaza. I also want to clarify that this is only an opening of a conversation rather than a closing and a definitive answer with those 6 options that are presented. So this concept is going to be continued to be considered depending on the input through the general plan update. And if the community is interested in continue this conversation, there will be likely a program included in the general update, which will then lead to development of a specific project. So just to give you some data on responses that we have received to date, without getting into the contents, but just the numbers. We have had about over 900 visits to the site with 300 distinct individuals. They spent about 2.5 minutes on the site, but unfortunately, we've only received 40 distinct responses. So folks are browsing and looking. 40. So 900 visits, 40 responses. So encourage people to not only visit and browse, but actually submit their input. So the survey will be open through August 31st. It is accessible through our city website, and we also have these cards around town. So we'll continue to encourage getting that information out. Now, the general municipal election, I want to let everybody know that the information is posted on our city website. So if you go to the www.cityofsolvang.com, which is our city website, and go to City Hall, the drop-down, there is a page there called Elections, which houses all of the information for the candidates for the city council, as well as the sales tax Measure U. So we have the open seat for the mayor, as well as candidate seats for District 4 and District 3. And once again, we have all of the information for our voters and residents to look at for the Measure U, which is a proposed 1% sales tax increase. Now, just to briefly mention to you the upcoming meetings for the Planning Commission and the Design Review Committee and the more significant projects that they would be reviewing. For the Planning Commission on September 6th, the Solvang Senior Center will be going forward. This would be actual final review of the project and approval, hopefully, of the project, which will then go into construction. The Design Review Committee will be reviewing the community design general plan element. So that's the very important element that sets forth our guidelines and our regulations for the architecture and the look and feel for the city of Solvang. Once they have their recommendations made, the element will also be going to the Planning Commission and then City Council for approval, along with the general plan comprehensive update overall. The Tourism Advisory Committee is busy working primarily focusing on the YuleFest right now. We have a YuleFest committee formed, which is consistent of 2 volunteer Tourism Advisory Committee members, as well as some members of the business community. So the YuleFest committee has been meeting and visioning the program for the YuleFest program for the month of December this year. And the Tourism Advisory Committee will be reviewing that at their next meeting on September 1st. And of course, we are continuing to onboard the Abbey agency and develop the marketing strategy with them. Now, the good news is that marketing manager position has been accepted, and the marketing manager is expected to start with the city on September 6th. Now, looking at advanced calendar for September 12th, we have a fairly light agenda. We'll have the results of what we get for Downtown Plaza Community Workshop results. We'll also have AB 1600 annual report, Code of Conduct biannual update, and we also have the consideration for Tourism Advisory Committee, subcommittee, or committee appointments. We have had 2 resignations. One is Cheryl Schallenberger, and another one is David Brent. So Cheryl was an appointee of Councilmember Arona, and David Brents was appointee of Councilmember Clark. So those would be the 2 council members that would have an opportunity to reappoint somebody else to those seats. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions to that report?
Yes, I have one
Councilmember
quick question. Is there anywhere on the website, the city website, or anywhere about the YuleFest committee that citizens can have some input?
No, it has not been advertised. So it's been basically the Tourism Advisory Committee had formed a subcommittee. They
Okay.
appointed 2 members.
I'm just curious.
And then those members have gathered a few more business
Okay.
owners.
I think if residents do have ideas, they always know where to find City Hall and
I would say the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting, which is a Brown Act.
can come to that.
meeting.
Exactly, yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, all right. Moving on to council comments. Anyone wishing to make any comments or have any requests? I just got a couple. Yeah.
Wait,
I'll keep mine. to
Mark
3 minutes.
Infanti has no comments.
Yes. We're going on
He
record.
said, "Oh my God, not me." Wow.
So just, it's being recorded right now. All right, moving on. I'll try to keep mine to less than 3 minutes. So moving on for the food bank, we had some numbers last week. 216 households were served, 763 individuals. New attendees were 24. This Wednesday, just reminding everybody, we have music in the park. And this coming Saturday, we have the Wheels and Windmills. Last go-around with the group that has been sponsoring it, and I believe the Vikings are taking it on after this year. I think that's the word that's out on the street, so that starts at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, 8 to 4. Council member, or I should say, Mayor Pro Tem Infante will be making the Mayor's Choice Awards. I'm urging him to pick a pickup truck this time, but I'm not sure if I'm.
It's
Seats to be. No, not fixed. Not at all. He's disagreeing with me, so anyway. And then lastly, just starting to get it out there right now, the 2022 California Coast Classic, which benefits, I believe, the Arthritis Association. They're going to have 500 bicycle riders coming through Solvang on both day 6 and day 7. Day 6 is September 15th. And day 7 is September 16th. They're going to come through from the back way, over Viborg, and then up Chalk Hill, out to Ballard, and then that way to Flying Flags for, I think it's Friday evening. And then Saturday morning, they're going to head from Flying Flags down Mission all the way to Alisal, out to Nohoe, and then back onto the 101 heading south. So just wanted to start getting that in everyone's minds. There's about 500 bicycle riders, I believe, that you're going to be seeing out on those 2 days. So just an FYI for you. And again, just hopefully we'll have a great state of the city this coming Wednesday. That's my last comments. Moving on to consent agenda items. Madam Clerk, would you just read the title? Actually, we don't need to read the title. Everyone sees that? So is there any council members right now that wish to pull any items from the consent agenda?
If anybody wanted to pull off this consent agenda, I'd have a problem.
All right.
No,
Yes,
I have none.
you have none. Okay, that's great. So moving on, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Euring.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
You guys have a dinner arrangement?
I guess. All right. We have no public hearings at this time, so moving on to regular business items. Item number 5. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of item number 5?
Approve one-year memorandum of understanding with Teamsters Union Local 986. Approve renegotiated one-year memorandum of understanding with Teamsters Union Local 989 or 6. Authorize the city manager to execute approved documents and authorize the city manager to process a budget adjustment in the amount of $116,000 to various salaries and benefits accounts. And to correct that, that MOU is number 986. Thank you.
Is there a staff report?
Okay, so this item is in front of you to, based on the results of negotiation that went on over the last couple of months between myself and the union, and it reflects the proposed tentative agreement terms for an updated contract that would be effective from August 1, 2022 through July 31, 2023. So the changes to the contract terms are summarized here on this slide. They include the 4% cost of living increase, an increase in housing allowance going from $500 a month to $600 a month. That's a cash benefit. Increase in health insurance benefit for employee only from $875 currently to $1,000 per month for the city contribution. Increase in health insurance opt-out cash benefit option going from $600 to $800 per month. An increase in vacation leave for employees who are employed with the city 1 to 5 years tenure, increasing from 6.6 hours accrual to 8 hours accrual monthly. And finally, the city would agree to conduct a compensation study with a goal to complete within 90 days with a provision of reopener of the contract by either party at the conclusion of the study. So the contract is in front of you for your consideration and final approval, ratification by the City Council. It has been ratified by the union members at this point.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time? You know you have one.
I do, but they touch too much on a closed session topic, so I can't, I'm in a quandary here. I can't bring that up.
No other questions? All right. At this time, we'll take public comment. Anyone, I don't have any speaker slips at this time, so is there anyone wishing to speak on item number 5 at this time? Seeing no one in-house, taking it back out to Zoom. Anyone on Zoom wishing to speak on item number 5 of the agenda? Crickets.
It's not a sexy topic.
All right, bringing it back for final council consideration and/or a motion. Councilmember
I
Thomas.
move that we approve the budget adjustment of $116,000 for the purpose of the memorandum.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Rona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Just clarification on the motion that it included the 3 points, approved renegotiated MOU, authorize the city manager to execute the documents, and $116.
So stated.
Yes. A, B, and C.
Agreed.
All right, moving on to item number 6. Madam Clerk, please read title of item 6.
Resolution 221190, setting pay ranges and benefits for unrepresented employees effective August 1, 2022. Approve the resolution setting pay ranges and benefits for unrepresented employees effective August 1, 2022, and authorize the city manager to process a budget adjustment in the total amount of $73,000 to various salary and benefit accounts.
So this item is in front of you addressing the unrepresented employees. We can take off the slides. Historically, the city of Solvang has always applied the same sort of changes to the benefits as what is being negotiated through the MOU. It is not required of you to do so, but that has been the practice here at the city of Solvang. So what this item presents to you is a proposal that you, via resolution, would approve adjustments to the benefits and pay ranges for unrepresented by the union employees, which would also go into effect as of August 1st and until such time that you would change those pay raises. So it would be the 4% COLA and all of the same increases to housing, health insurance, et cetera, that would apply to via this resolution. This resolution does not apply to the city manager.
All right, are there any questions of this staff report? Nope. I know it's what we agreed on, so. You look like you have a question.
I'm just, the amount in the budget adjustment is different in my agenda than the one that's being discussed here, so I'm just checking.
The fiscal impacts on page 73. It says 53 above assumptions
Oh,
instead of 73.
is it supposed to be 73?
Page 73 is 53,000.
53,000 is, okay, so that is correct, 53,000?
Yeah.
On the agenda, it actually says 73,000. So,
Well, it was read 73,000, right? I have 53,000 in mind.
but on the report, it says 53.
It should be 53, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, moving on, is there any public comment at this time with no further questions? Any public comment? Anyone in-house? I don't have any speaker slips on this one either. So, no one in-house. Anyone out in Zoom wishing to speak on item number 6 of the regular agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for final comments and/or I'll take a motion.
I'll move that we approve the resolution setting the pay ranges and benefits to unrepresented employees effective August 1st, 2022, and authorize the city manager to process a budget adjustment in the total amount of $53,000 to various salary and benefit accounts.
Is there a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Rona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Moving on to item number 7. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title?
Parking in lieu regulations policy discussion. Receive a presentation on City of Solvang parking in lieu regulations and provide policy direction if desired.
So this item is in front of you based on council prior general direction and wanting to place this on the agenda. So it's in front of you for your discussion and policy direction today. The parking requirements are imposed by the city municipal code. The developers or the businesses generally have an option to either provide parking as required or in certain instances when allowed pay in lieu fees. The parking in lieu was established by a resolution in 1994, the one that's applicable today, to raise revenue for constructing a new parking facility on property owned by the city on Oak Street. All of the funds that have been collected to date have been primarily expended to purchase the parking lot 5 across the street here. The city is also in the last stages of a comprehensive general plan update, which will be followed by a review of the capital improvement program in alignment with that update and a development impact fee study. The development impact fee study will comprehensively evaluate the fee structure going forward. So in the meantime, staff recommends review of specific sections in Title 11 to clarify applicability of regulations to changes in use and outdoor dining expansions. And with that, I'll pass it on to the city attorney to address any additional legal terms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, I'm available mostly to answer any questions about kind of the history, where we've been, where we might be going, and the specific changes that are being requested. There was just a little bit of uncertainty from staff's standpoint as to how to apply the parking in lieu fees to restaurants and other establishments that are not explicitly set forth in that. So the direction we'd like to get is how you would like to go forward with that and whether those clarifications are appropriate. If so, we would bring back a revision to the ordinance to make sure that that is clear. But other than that, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
So I have a question related to enforcement, because, recently we saw a case where there was a, like a change of use because it involved expanding, the serving area. And I can think of a few establishments where they have changed use from, say, retail to food, and they haven't been required to, provide additional parking, even though it seems to me here that a change from retail to restaurant or food would trigger having to provide more parking. So how is that, why are some people subject to enforcement and not others?
It would probably have to do with whether or not there was an intensification of use, moving from retail to a restaurant. If they shrunk the area in which dining could be accomplished and put other types of retail selling, I don't know, T-shirts, mugs, and so on, there might be a different calculation in that situation. I'd need to take a look at this specific instance to tell you why there might have been a difference in that. But the one that came to you as a council several meetings ago was clearly an intensification of use. There was additional space being used, and they had requested that the council make a determination to waive those parking in lieu fees in the parking spaces. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis that staff will take a look at what the nature of the intensification is to determine whether or not there's additional parking required.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Would this be a planning commission issue?
It certainly could be, but ultimately the policy decision as to setting the fees is something that's not within the Planning Commission's purview. So they typically don't get involved in the financial aspects of it. They may be able to provide you comments about where parking could be provided within the city. Excuse me, the kinds of parking programs that might be consistent with the general plan and so on. But ultimately, council is going to make the decision from a policy standpoint as to how the fees will be applied, if at all. You're not required to have an in lieu parking fee program, but it does provide an opportunity for those businesses who are not able to provide on-site parking to have an alternative that could be used to acquire additional parking facilities in the future.
It just seemed like the modifications would be something that would first go through the planning commission, not the fees so much.
Yeah, the application to restaurants, that's really more of a financial issue. If I don't know that the Planning Commission would necessarily have something to provide input on that, because it would be, it's a fee structure more, that you're giving an opportunity to businesses to participate in the fee program as opposed to being required to provide parking. So that's really what this is about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find interesting about this, is it really is just a tax. Because if you take over a restaurant and that had parking in front of it and nothing new is being added, you got the same space, but now you've got a parking in lieu fee required?
The parking in lieu fee, well, let me first and foremost say it's not a tax. If it were a tax, it would be subject to a voter approval in most instances. So this is a
It's a
fee,
fee.
and it is an optional fee.
Gov speak.
All the people who develop their properties within the city in the retail and commercial have the option of providing parking on site. So if they're physically incapable of doing it because of the structure, they don't want to tear it down and provide parking on site, then they have the option of paying the parking in lieu fee. It's not required. That's something that the applicant can choose to do. If they choose not to pay that fee, then they do have to provide the parking on site.
What is, may I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
What is the, first time I've ever asked.
Granted.
What is the exact dollar amount on the in lieu fees right now?
I believe it's somewhere around 12,000.
That was like 12.5.
12,725, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll save that for my comments.
Yeah, because it's a big chunk of change for a startup company.
I would like to see if we could put an RFP out for the parking facility that's priced at $904,000.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering what is, obviously, this was back in 90 and codified in 94. What was the parking lot there? Is it Lot 4? Or is it the one right across the street?
The money was spent ultimately on parking lot 5 across the street.
Correct, but there was $538,000 in that. And it says it was supposed to go to a parking facility priced at $904,000 on property owned by the city on Oak Street. I was just curious, what was that property? Is it Lot 4, or is it something other than?
It was on a toxic dump.
The APNs were listed in the original resolution without
And
pulling
they
up.
were listed here, just didn't
And
know.
I tried pulling it up, but those APN numbers do not register to something now. So I'd have to
Really?
do a little bit more research to determine which lots those were. It didn't come up in my county mapping.
They didn't. Interesting. Okay.
But the primary purpose of these fees is for the city to be able to provide additional parking.
That's correct. That's ultimately what the program was intended to do. And this is not something unique to Solvang. There are other cities that will do this because in the absence of requiring people to pay for parking who use the parking, cities don't really have an income stream to build parking facilities other than their general fund. They could dedicate other types of funds to it, I suppose. But this is an opportunity to place the burden of financing those parking facilities on the people who are generating the need for those parking facilities. The other option open to the council is, of course, to charge for parking, and there's all sorts of different mechanisms that you can do. There are, lease operate, where you lease a bare land to an operator for 30 years. They build the entire parking structure, operate it, keep a portion of the receipts in exchange for that right, and that's a model that a lot of cities have done successfully. But making the change from free parking to paid parking is another whole level of policy determination for the city council to discuss.
Right.
So short of that, this is the financing mechanism that the city council came up with in the 1990s to try to provide for additional parking.
And part of my concern is that having looked into double-decking parking and everything else, we're looking at $4 to $6 million to double-deck one parking lot. At $12,000 a pop, we have to put a lot of fees on a lot of people to get there.
You stole my main point on this. It's so arbitrary, but I'll wait till comments, but you're absolutely right.
It's just, I don't see how you get from A to B. We definitely need it. The paid parking is probably something we should discuss more at some time in the future. But the fees seem rather steep but still won't get us to where we want to be. So I have my concerns.
Sure, and the fees were adjusted in 1994. They were less than that prior to the 94 resolution. I will tell you that while $12,000 seems steep, the cost of a single parking space would be substantially more than that if you had to acquire just bare land at this point. And so that's what the in lieu fee was originally intended to try to designate, is the approximate cost of a parking space to acquire and construct it. But I can tell you, just knowing what I know of surface parking, $12,000 is not going to buy a lot of land, nor the improvements for it.
Thank you.
Do we have any idea how much in today's dollars it would work? I mean, obviously, back then, that was 94.
Yeah,
Talking
it would
12,000.
depend on the acquisition of the land that you're looking at, if the land is available, what it's currently used for, what kind of improvements you need to do. If there's a lot of grading involved, that's going to increase your cost. If it's relatively flat, that's going to be a cheaper situation. So those can be done as part of, a parking study where you identify various parcels and you try to come up with some idea of what it would cost to construct a parking space in that situation, and then you can set your fees by that. But unless you have a very robust parking in lieu program where people are actually taking advantage of it, as Councilmember Infondy points out, the chances of you accumulating sufficient money to actually build the structure is going to be more difficult in the long term than some other model, such as constructing a paid parking facility.
But, and then just to add to that, if you think about where we could even put additional parking outside of double decking, which is really expensive, it's never going to be where the people want to park. It's not near the shopping. I mean, we've got some property, well, okay.
And there are other options. I mean, you mentioned double decking. There are options to go below grade. That
It's more expensive.
it is more expensive, but it doesn't have the same kind of visual impacts that building a double decker structure would have. It does take your parking out of commission for the period of time that you're doing it if it's existing parking. But there are options out there, and there are parking companies out there that have come up with really interesting you may have seen them, carousel designs where they actually drive in and it goes onto a carousel either above or below grade. So So there's companies that do nothing but think about this 24/7. For Solvang's situation, it's really more of a policy decision as to whether or not you're going to continue moving forward and expanding in lieu parking to allow people who are outside of commercial and retail to avail themselves of this in exchange for being allowed to rehabilitate their facilities or change the use, or whether or not you want to say, okay, let's look longer term, try to acquire either additional parking facilities, ground level, or start thinking about constructing actual structures.
And then just to throw salt in the wound, the fire department wants parking lot 5.
So
here
they
we
would
are
be
just-
paying for it.
And maybe they can construct an underground parking garage on behalf of the city beneath it.
Believe me, that
We'll end up
crossed my
paying
mind.
for it eventually, guys.
Yeah, I think we will.
So at this time,
Thank
though, I
you.
just wanted to confirm, but there is zero left in that fund, correct? Because it was used to purchase Lot 5?
At this point, there's no funds left.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, just a comment, because, I mean, we're all very upset when, you know, somebody comes trying to give a facelift to some building that it's long overdue for renovation, and they're stuck, you know, paying all of these fees. But on the other hand, before we do away or we, you know, re-engineer this, I do think it's a good idea to have a program that encourages developers to figure out parking on their, you know, on their development. I'm not crazy about the burden of it being on, you know, business owners that are existing and they already have a relationship with the city. But I do think that it's important that we enforce that upcoming developments, you know, take care of their parking so that it doesn't spill onto our neighborhoods.
If you're going to build a hotel, put parking spaces. That might come up.
You think?
Did you
My comments, I wish I would have thought of that. I like the idea very, very much of the public-private partnership with a long-term lease if somebody wants to put the money up front, because we're never going to get a parking structure built on $12,500. I think that the parking in lieu fee is arbitrary and almost punitive to some businesses that are trying to invest in our community, and we're going through a transition now of more quality versus quantity. And in my opinion, I don't think we're going to see the vehicle traffic that we saw in the last 2 years because of COVID, the way people were not traveling on airplanes, they were driving here from LA and points away. So I think that is the apex of the vehicle traffic that you're going to see in Solvang in May and June and July of 2021. So with your micro, I'm just looking at my notes, your hotels are heading towards self-check-in. Your micro hotels are having fewer employees. As I said, the trend in Solvang is towards quality versus quantity. So I think we're not going to be maxed out. And we also had Copenhagen Drive closed at that time, and we don't now. So I just think that the 12,500 was very arbitrary and punitive to some businesses that were trying to do nice things, as Councilmember Arona said. And that's why with this last one that we went through, I voted to waive those because it has been arbitrary. I actually wouldn't mind if we said, you know what, it's a flat fee of $2,000 and put it towards something else. Call it your in lieu fee or whatever, but then and make it a rule. But don't make it $12,500 for a guy that's got a business that serves 13 people an hour, and you're going to tell him he's got to buy 6 parking spaces. I don't think that makes any sense. But those are just my opinions. And the pay parking is a third rail in Solvang. We've been down that road.
I would agree with you for the most part. I'm not sure that $2,000 does much, so why put it on there at all?
I mean, what if you charge everybody? Because everybody couldn't, every business, creates the need for that parking.
Right.
So, but,
Retroactive?
well, no, but maybe that's something that we can think about. How can everybody
throwing a
put on
number
a
out.
little bit of something so that
12,000,
we
I
have
think.
better facilities for
12,000,
everybody?
I think, is too much.
Especially when you're talking about 7, 8, and 9 units for somebody just trying to, the wagon wheel is a great example too, but then they do have parking over there as well.
Yeah.
But I almost think that just a uniform, okay, this is part of the building process, and I'm not into fees, and as you guys know, charging money to for things, but if it was just built into the permitting cost for this is that, it's just going to go towards parking or something, I would entertain that, is all I'm trying to say.
And I'm not even sure if the wagon wheel has enough parking did it just meet? They had
That
to
that
redesign
item
it?
came to both the Plan Commission and the City Council when it was going through the approval for
Right, for
the
the
project
paint.
that's currently approved, which was taking the building back to original use. And so
Yeah.
that was the logic behind that decision, that the parking as is sufficient because
Yeah.
it's going back to its original use.
And they're actually adding more parking than it currently.
Yeah, I think they were
Hold.
putting parking on the alley
Yeah.
side. Do we have any other questions? All right, take it out to council or public comment. I don't have speaker slips again for this. Is there anyone wishing to speak on item number 7? No. Moving out to Zoom. Anyone wishing to speak on item number 7? Seeing none, bring it back for final comments. And just no motion, just a policy direction at this time.
Yeah, it's just
Anyone?
receiving a presentation is all we're getting.
Yeah, I think it would be good to revisit this when either we start exploring if we're going to partner with somebody else or,
Well, wait, but if,
I would actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to look into the possibility of somebody, a public-private partnership with a long-term lease.
We did have one.
we did have what, a discussion or a partner?
Discussion, a partner, right?
Well, there's a couple of people that I've spoken with that might be interested in doing that, actually. But that's another discussion with regard to this specific item on the agenda.
Correct.
We just received a presentation that says, okay, here's what it is. None of us like it, so shouldn't we bring this back to change, fix, eliminate something?
Eliminate sounds good.
I would be hesitant to get rid of it just because
Yeah.
I don't want developers
that
to
was extreme.
say, oh, we don't have to do parking now.
But-
But
Shouldn't we ask to have it put, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
more work.
Manager.
Go ahead.
So just, there's a couple of things already in the works. Based on your adopted council goals, we are working on putting together an RFP to study parking options. So those would be the parking garages. It will include an option to look into those partnerships with private, public, and all of those options. So that's already in the works. That will be coming back to you for review. I also mentioned that we are in the final stages of the general plan update, which will then set forth the direction on the land use and the traffic circulation and everything else that would be guiding our CIP program going forward. And so in light of that, there is an RFP issued right now to move forward with a impact fees study, which will comprehensively review all of the impact fees in the city. I agree that, $900,000 parking from 1990 at this point doesn't make any sense. However, before we move forward, we really need to go through that process of knowing what we want to achieve and then set those fees. And the study will calculate the actual fee that will be required to gain 100% funding through such program. But by policy, there will be options for you to review how much of that burden you would want to put on developers versus subsidize at the city level.
So then we just say thank you and go to the next agenda item?
Yeah,
Well,
we could,
there-
right now, that's one of the alternates.
There is a request for some direction, at
Yes.
least on the restaurants and the
Yeah.
minor thing that we have been encountering where restaurants are not explicitly set forth as being able to participate. We've been interpreting it in a way that allows them to participate in the in lieu program. Because otherwise, if that's not cleared up, they have to provide the parking and they don't get to do the in lieu fee if they intensify their use. So this is providing an option, but we need that clarification as to whether or not council wants to allow those types of uses to also participate in the in lieu program if they wish.
So that's on page 80. We want to clarify the applicability of section 1111.9 in lieu fees to the restaurants, cafes, taverns, et cetera, is listed in section 1111.7. And right now, we don't have that, so I guess the short answer is yes. Is that simple?
It is that simple. If I see a few more nodding heads, then we can take that direction.
Okay.
Okay,
So
if we say yes, what are?
It's,
We're just allowing restaurants to
be able-
use the in lieu parking program if they wish not to provide the actual spaces on site.
yeah.
The code doesn't provide for restaurants to be able to do that right now. We've been interpreting it to allow them to go through that program, but it's just a cleanup
That
amendment.
the restaurants and stuff were an exception.
I agree with that.
So
Okay.
Yeah,
yes would be the, go ahead with that.
Yes.
and good call, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then do we need to also clarify the required number of spaces? Or not at this
That-
time? Maybe that would be
That's a
something
more
for the
weighty
study.
decision, I think, because
I think it depends on what the study will come up with.
I think you're going to be going through the general plan process, and that's going to be blended into that. You're going to have that opportunity to determine whether or not the current code is asking for too much parking, citywide in all zones, as opposed to picking it individually.
Right.
So that is a decision that you can probably defer to another time, but we wanted to put it on the council's radar so that you can be thinking about that when the general plan amendments come through.
Okay. So at least we have clarified number one. All right. So moving on to item number 8. Madam Clerk, please read the title of item number 8.
Language modifications to regulations during drought conditions. Approve language modifications to resolution setting standards for drought stage 2 penalties.
I will introduce the item, and our Utilities Director, Jose Acosta, is also here available to answer any questions. So the item in front of you today is to modify slightly the resolution for drought stage 2. You had adopted the modifications on June 11 of 2022. And what we're looking to modify here is a little bit of the language clarification to where the resolution originally stated that the benchmark year for your commercial, industrial, irrigation, and multifamily customers was going to be the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Instead, because we realized that some of the tail end of that year included COVID-19, which really disrupted the usage by consumers. So we want to clarify and make that just the calendar year of 2019, which would be a more fair representation. We have also, based on some feedback, have made prepared some additional materials for distribution with the next utility billing. So that was included in your packets. And this is just an example of some additional information, as you would see, just explaining to our utility billing customers on how to read their bills. With that, we are available for any questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time?
One comment. Thank you.
Comment?
That rewrite of the way it was described in the flyer that went out, it clears it up a lot with the wording. And I appreciate staff putting this together and making that slight change to the time period. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a question, because I saw that multifamily asked for a lesser reduction than single-family residential. Are multifamilies, do they use less water typically? What's the rationale behind it?
So the reason, this was the original amount of reduction in stage 2. Multifamily, it's hard because we don't know how many people are in the household, and they do use different quantities of water based on the amount of people in each unit. So I think that's why it was adopted at 10% previously.
I would assume they also don't have the amount of landscaping that a single-family home would,
That is correct as
which
well.
would require more water. All right, thank you.
I just wanted to ask if you would kind of clarify, maybe for everyone, how you came up with the 1,800 cubic feet HCF figure based on the assumptions that were given.
Yes, I'd gladly answer that question. So
that's-
what we did is we did the rate study, and based on the 1,649 single-family residential accounts, they took the average, monthly average of each consumer. We had some outliers, and that's where you see the 1,6,500 cubic feet, and you see a low of 200 cubic feet per month. Those are all outliers. The majority of the consumers, based on their usage, averaged about 1,800 cubic feet per month. And that's how we got that information from this last rate study. He used all the information from calendar year 2020 and based it on each month usage. We asked, and asking for the 20% reduction takes it down to 1,400 cubic feet per month. There was some questions regarding the gallons per day per capita as well. And so the reduction goes from approximately 13,464 gallons per month at the 1,800 cubic feet. That's about, as you can see in the staff report, that's 112 gallons per day per capita. We're asking to be reduced down to 1,400 cubic feet, which takes that down to about 87 gallons per day per capita. And as you can see in the staff report, the state average is 48 gallons per day per capita, and the national average is 75 gallons per day per capita.
Well, we know that to be the case when we asked for voluntary, and we actually were using more water than we actually had. So,
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
you may ask a question.
And I apologize if, when I stepped out, this might have already been touched on, but I was called by a business owner this last week, and he said 2.5 years ago on his own, because of the drought, and like I said, this may have already been addressed. 2.5 years ago in his business down by Alma Potato, he put in low-flow toilets. He did about 3 or 4 different things because he was very conscious of the drought. So he's reduced his consumption because he deals with the public that uses his facilities. He's reduced his consumption 2.5 years ago as much as he possibly can. Now, he's going to have to do a percentage of what that usage is from a year ago, and he's very concerned he's going to get penalized when there's no more blood to draw from that turnip. So what do we tell somebody like that?
It's unfortunate because, as you said, he's taken every opportunity he could to reduce, but I would just say try to find other measures if there are any, landscaping, and I don't have an answer for that gentleman because he's already
There's
tried.
not a lot of
his best.
landscaping around his gas pumps.
Well, if you recall, Ed Skit came up and made the same comment about 3 meetings ago. He said that back in 2019, he started doing all the reductions he could. He put in low-flow toilets, shower heads, all that kind of stuff in the hotel, brought the water level down, and now he's got to cut it down another 20% or he get hit with $1,000 a month. There has to be some kind of consideration for that type of a situation, whether it be gas pumps or hotels.
Totally agree, yeah. And, in my case, I've got 2 kids that left for college, so my consumption went down, but then, and I work out at the Marriott every morning, so I use their shower. There's so many variables with this.
You work out every morning?
No, not since my
Okay.
hip was replaced, but I did for 12 years. But there's just so many variables. There's so many individuals that have unique stories about this, and it's hard to address every single one being equitable.
I think that's the concern for everyone. And I know that was kind of based again on the comments that people were making, maybe instead of 2019, we go back even a little bit further. And I mean, every one of these are going to kind of have to be taken individually anyway. I think that's really the bottom line.
Or an appeal process.
Or an appeal.
Do we
Yeah.
have an appeal process?
Every citizen has a right to bring present to the council for discussion, and
Yeah.
council could present.
But that'll come to the council for review.
Because I know in 2019, the city,
Things are getting longer.
before we were even starting to do stuff, we had a program where we're trying to get people to reduce and change the front yards and all that other type of stuff. That was in 2019. And now we're saying that's, the year we're still going to use as our benchmark. We might want to consider when they come in for an appeal, just look at what 2017, 18, and 19 was. I mean, I know,
Or do we set up another committee?
well,
You know,
no, but I mean,
We put the rules in place. They have a
Yeah.
right to appeal. That would bog down the process, and it could be very, very time-consuming. But they have that right, in my opinion,
They
because
absolutely
we made
do.
the rules.
yeah,
So we owe it to the citizens of Solvang to listen to their specific concerns.
I agree. Absolutely agree.
One other comment I've heard, and I understand it's something in the future, is the smart water meters. Because right now, you can't tell mid-month if you're heading for hitting the target or too much or anything else. So the meters that would allow you to get on your phone, everything's on your phone these days, and see how much water you're using, would help tremendously. I know those are bloody expensive, and we've got to put, and the manual cost, the labor cost of putting them all in is going to be horrendous, I'm sure. Is that in the future plans?
Yes, we did include that in the CIP, and we're actually, year 2 of the budget, we're going to do the study to see about the radio communications, and we're looking at installing the radios and the hardware is about $200,000 to $300,000. The meters themselves that are in the ground right now are already capable, but you need the special radio on them, which transmits to a special tower and then brings that information back.
Oh, that's excellent. I thought we had to change the meters. No, that's great. So 200, 300,000, that's all you need.
That was about a year ago.
Pass that
number,
tax,
but I'm
folks.
hoping it's
Pass that
different.
tax, please.
Oh,
Do we have any?
I have
Go ahead.
two more points. Instead of doing any penalties, is it possible just to up substantially the cost of the water usage for that individual that's gone over that, as opposed to a penalty?
Well, that's what the penalty is. Well, for residential, that's what the penalty is.
Okay, is the increase, okay. And then I'm looking at somebody in the audience who just put a beautiful, redid a beautiful home on Viborg a year and a half ago? Okay, Alisol and Viborg, the most drought-resistant property you can find, and that was before all this.
And I'm using 15 HCF last month.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to,
With low-flow toilets, low-flow shower heads, faucets.
I should call you up to talk about it.
Yeah.
In fact, Keith, would you come and talk
Well,
about it?
hold on. We're getting to him.
Got it.
He's
you're
one
going
of
to
the-
be talking about
Yes,
it.
he's one of the speakers, so,
Thank you. Thank you.
did you have any
I
other?
thought they were here for pickleball, I'm sorry.
No, that's later.
I'm just wearing the hat.
Any last one? Is that it? Oh, okay. I'll move it out to, so Keith, come on up.
All right.
I know you're the one that had the speaker slip.
I was hoping there'd be more. All right, I got this down to 3 minutes. So, Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Keith Adler. I reside at 893 Alisol Road. And I realize that agenda number 8 is simply correcting the base year, but I still feel that my comments are relevant to the issue in general. The original proposal to increase our water, sewer, and meter rates was handled in a way to guarantee its passage, as protesting these changes required a majority of city residents to protest in writing by a certain date. I'm sure that most of the city water users were never even aware that that was the case, and most won't be aware of the changes until they are fined for the first time. That was not only undemocratic, it was deceptive. Furthermore, using the benchmark of 18 HCF for all single-family residences does not take into account family size nor property size. And I would further remind the council that a 20% reduction from 18 HCF is actually 14.4 and not 14. And this might seem trivial, but that extra 0.4 is 300 additional gallons. So that's significant. I am well aware of the need to reduce our water usage. My wife and I have been limiting the flushing of toilets for so many years now that I can't tell you the last time I flushed on a regular basis. We moved to Solvang 2.5 years ago to retire, tore out our existing landscaping and installed California native shrubs, lots of gravel, and spent a small fortune installing a small amount of drought-tolerant grass that is now dead from lack of watering. I am more than happy to do my part, but what irks me is why we are encouraging the building of new hotels and why we are issuing building permits for new homes, condos, and apartments. If we don't have enough water for the residents that we currently have, then how can we possibly have enough to supply these new users? I am aware of the mandates from the state regarding housing construction, but has anyone thought to ask them where the water is supposed to come from? I am well aware of the value that tourism dollars and taxes bring to this community and the need for them, but hotel rooms use between 100 and 400 gallons of water per day. Even at the 100-gallon rate, that's 3,000 gallons per month per room. By allowing this construction, you are essentially telling your constituents that our rates are doubling in 5 years in order to subsidize our tourists. Has anyone in city government investigated state and our federal monies available so that we don't have to raise our water rates so much? Have we looked at drilling additional wells to supplement the ones that we have? Climate change is a reality, and we are not going to deal with our ongoing drought simply by continuing to cut our water usage. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other speaker slips. Manny, did you want to say anything?
I concur with Keith.
Just state your name and,
I'm
for the record.
Raul Valdez. I'm a resident of Solvang, 353 Mittenhof. I concur with Keith. My wife and I have been cutting back on, like he said, toilet use. We still take shower water that's cold, and then we use that water to dump it into the toilet bowl. Over the last 3 years, we've gotten more drought-tolerant plants, eliminated grass. We've gone to low-flush toilets. I even replaced the regulator coming into the house so that before it was just letting out too much water to reduce the amount of water and the pressure. So we've done quite a bit of that. I was one of the few that sent the letter in protest of the water rates. I thought, I just finished reading the engineering study. I haven't finished the analysis. I'm going to read the sewer one next. But the bills that come with the water, the sewer, and the usage, in 5 years, are going to be up 65%. Now, I know there's a lot of wealthy residents in Solvang, but there's also a lot of non-wealthy residents. And as you mentioned earlier, in the meeting here, there was a bunch of food that was given out of the food bank. That's fine that they could eat, but they also need to drink water. And the way that the rate structures are set up, if you use no water, you're paying about 65% of the water, of the cost. It's just on fixed cost. There's really no incentive to reduce water, short of putting a $1,000 fine for exceeding the 14 or 15 limit that's been discussed at the meeting here. So I really kind of urge the council to go back and review the engineering study. I don't know if anybody's read it in the council, but there was a bunch of assumptions that they made that they didn't fully explain. And some of the way that they came up with the rates and the equalization is a little murky. So in 5 years, some of us will be able to continue affording the bills, but there's a lot of people that are not going to be able to do that in the valley. And handing water to them is not going to be a solution because they're still paying for the fixed cost of a meter and the pipe to your house. So anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. There any other comments in-house? Seeing none, we'll take it out to Zoom. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Sheila, Benedict, you're up.
Well, you kind of guessed that I'd have something to say about the water. This is Sheila Benedict. I live in Solvang, and I have lived here for almost 12 years and worked at the mission for 18 years. And I think the only way you're going to solve your problem and make your residents happy is to put a moratorium on any big building projects, because they're going to eat up a lot of water, and in the long run, we that live here and are getting very discouraged about living here are going to pay the bill. So all these big building projects, I really and truly believe that you need to stop them before they even get started. I don't know where they think they're going to get the water from. If you're complaining that we're having so much water trouble, why do you even want to consider any big building projects? That's my 2 cents or 3 cents or 5 cents, and I really hope that you will consider the residents as equally as you consider everything else. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any others out there wishing to speak that are in Zoom? I see a hand, but I can't tell if that's upside down.
It's a clapping.
Who?
Nick DeCroce. Nancy Emerson has her hand up.
Mr. DeCroce?
No, he put his hand down. Now we have
Oh,
Nancy
okay.
Emerson with her hand up.
Miss Emerson. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay.
Mayor Urigan Council, I'm Nancy Emerson, speaking as a Solvang resident. Reading tonight's staff memo, for the first time I realized we might not have enough water for this year. I thought, let's do a resident-driven project to teach all, including tourists, how to save enough water to survive this crisis. If you, city staff, and organizations like the Solvang Chamber, the Hotel Association, We Watch, and others committed to conservation efforts work together, we can do this. We need a positive campaign to focus every resident and tourist, young to old, and every business on how to be water wise. For now, let's call it, How Much Water Can I Save? Your website's information, which includes landscape rebates and a link to the countywide WaterWise website, provides a valuable base. This campaign builds on that in September and October to focus the whole community on specific ways to save water. It will use multiple websites, social media, newspapers, and personal contact. Information will be targeted to each of our 3 main sectors: residential, school, and preschool, and commercial, industrial, institutional. It emphasizes gallons saved, but ties to cubic feet, the water bill measurement. 7.5 gallons equals a cubic foot, just a little other piece of information. And here's your first simple WaterWise tip. Brush teeth, then swish using a cup. Saves up to 10 gallons per person per day. I asked City Council's support for this idea, and I'm wondering who else might want to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We have. I can't see it.
There's no other hands, I think.
There look like
Nick
a hand.
Nick is doing the clapping hands. I think he's showing support.
Oh, clapping hands. Okay.
Get your emojis right, you guys.
Well, it's upside down. That's a part of it.
Exactly.
I'll have to stand on my head, and I haven't got into that yoga pose yet. All right, so we have all of our comments, bringing it back to council for any discussion and action. Does anyone have any final comments?
My only comment is that probably 60% of the residents of California are from another country or the East Coast when we went through this in 1976. And I remember the PSAs every single week to put a Coke bottle or a brick in your toilet to reduce the flow of water. It's like you just got to get creative and pray for rain. And I mean, what else can we do? It's just, this is such a rock and a hard place.
Jose, you Got to come up with some ideas.
Besides.
On the good news, let's just put a positive spin. We did get water coming down the San Ynez River. So if any of you have not actually been to the Alisal Bridge, there's water underneath the bridge now, and it hasn't been there in quite a while.
And that water will allow us to return running wells 3 and 7 here shortly.
Yeah,
So
that was my
That will
question.
help us out.
3 and 7 are
So-
running
Still
again.
means that, doesn't mean that we have more water, just means we'll be able to meet our demands
Yeah.
and maintain water for the residents.
And the traffic on Fjord increases, and it's like a beach down there right now.
Yes.
As an additional question, if I may, Mr. Acosta, what is the status of the new well that we're working on out on near on the river?
We have to videotape the well. We're going to set a plug at a certain level in the well where we experience high H2S in the well, and then we're going to do a pump test. We're hoping to complete this within the next couple weeks, and we'll know if the well is sustainable and what flow we can expect from that well.
What was the status of the HCA well?
That is the HCA well. I apologize. What was the other?
Well, I was thinking of the well by the gravel pit in the San Ynez River.
We actually have the hearing on August 30th to see what the state determines on moving forward with that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I do see a hand out there. I'll take it back out for one final comment.
Yeah, hi. I think Nick does have something to say, but he needs to unmute. Can you help him with that?
Can we unmute Nick?
I am unmuted now, but I have been continuously muted by the host, probably 5 or 6 times.
We can hear you now.
And even though I'm upside down, I'm not really upside down. I don't know how.
I wonder how you're doing that. That's amazing. Please go ahead. If you had comments, we were trying to get you. It was hard to tell what was happening there. So if you have a comment, feel free to, you have 3 minutes. Go for it.
Okay, I will get started on my comments. Good evening. I am Nick Croce, representing WeWatch on the subject of the language modifications to the regulations during drought conditions. A stage 2 drought ordinance is mandated by the government, as we all know, under Executive Order N722. Under this executive order, the city of Solvang is ordered to achieve a reduction in residential water usage along with the rest of the state. It is now being suggested that the current benchmark year, which is 2019/2012, be changed to calendar year 2019. Then this information will be a more accurate reference year since it will not have a half year 2020 with the annual COVID pandemic distortions. We agree that using calendar year 2019 dated as a benchmark for the commercial, industrial, institutional sectors rather than fiscal year 2019-2020 data seems a reasonable, at least for the commercial, industrial, and institutional customers, with hospitality firms being mostly severely affected by COVID in 2020. We question why it should apply to the irrigation and multifamily residential mobile home sectors, as COVID impacts them no more than impacted the single-family residential sector. Based on the cumulative average production and consumption figures since 2012 that is shown in the August 25th memo, the city is not achieving a 20% reduction. This means that a healthy percentage of Solvang households will be paying a fine starting August the 1st. The other subject that deserves attention related to this is the size of the penalty. A single-family residential customer faces no penalty if one uses no more than the amount allowed. In the second tier of use, there is a penalty of 1.5 times the current water rate. Use above the second tier amount results in a penalty of twice the current rate for any amount over the second tier.
Mr. Croce,
Penalty for a second
Mr. Croce,
violation
Nick,
of any stage 1 or 2 drought regulation is currently $100 per occurrence after a written violation.
Nick, can you hear me?
Are commensurate.
Nick, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
We have to cut you off. You've had over 3 minutes. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, bringing it back.
Good points.
Final comments and/or a motion.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the language modifications to the resolution setting the standards for the drought year Stage 2 penalties.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, moving on to item number 9. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Special Event Grant Funding Policy for Fiscal Year 23-24. Per Council's general direction, receive and approve special event grant funding policy to be applied to fiscal year 23-24 supplemental budget development process. B, approve minor modifications to the special events permitting guide.
Staff report, please.
Okay, so this item is in front of you based on some of the prior discussions and desire to have a clear process for any kind of consideration for special event grants. So what's been put in front of you is proposed structure for reviewing any kind of consideration for grant funding for special events. It does mimic the time frame and the process for your other grants, which is the humanitarian services that you already have in place. So it would open in the time frame to allow for the next budget development. There would be a set time frame when these requests can be brought forward to you. So it's not open-ended, and there would be requirements for how the applications would be completed. So the proposed policy would open the application period from February 1st to March 31st of 2023. Those applications would be considered for the next budget, which would be the supplemental budget of a 2-year financial plan, which would be the 23-24 fiscal year. And this policy just proposes a couple of different distinctions for the types of events that we have here in Solvang and how those would be considered. So one category would be the community and charitable events. So those will most likely be the smaller ones based on your nonprofits serving Solvang community specifically. Another type of event would be the economic benefit event. That is an event that's really being held and considered for potential funding in recognition that the event would be bringing in substantial revenue to the city. So they would be required to show measurable economic benefits, supporting tourism, generating hotel room nights, supporting local businesses, and providing measurable exposure. The grant funding as proposed, and you have a full policy in your packets, would be that the community and charitable event grants would be in-kind only, so it would depend on what kind of fees would apply to them, and that would be essentially a waiver of the fees. No cash awards would be awarded. For the economic benefits grants, the proposal is to have very specific or requirements for their applications. So they would have to be showing that what the estimated economic benefit is and provide measurable objective criteria and goals for that event, and also have performance numbers at the conclusion of the event. The proposal is for the potential funding not to exceed 25% of the budget for the event. And we would also require them to submit all of the financials for that event and include audit language. So that's the general recommendations to create that structure to ensure that everyone can equally apply and be considered with these very clear guidelines. Your packet also includes the special event guide, which is what we use for permitting the events, and that's something that you've already considered, but now that we have used it for a while, there's just a little bit of clarification that's added, making sure that everybody understands ahead of time that, for example, the sheriff's office fees may apply. We also add some clarifications on insurance requirements, and one of the changes that's being proposed there is consideration of what's a large event and what's a big or what's a small event. So we're taking that number down to 250 people instead of 500 people, because that's really more of the capacity of the Solvang Park, where we have most of our small events.
So that is the capacity of the park, 250?
That's not the maximum, but that's getting up there to about 75% of the capacity.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time?
Yeah, I'm just asking for clarification. So these are only available in order to apply for either one, whether it's community and charitable or economic benefit grant. The organization has to be a nonprofit organization?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is not open to for-profit or somebody wanting to throw a marathon and argue that they need money because it's going to bring lots of people to town.
It would have to be for nonprofits only that would be eligible, and yes, a for-profit organization is specifically called out in the proposed guidelines to be not eligible.
Okay.
Excellent. Quick question on the.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Looking at the very beginning of the recommendations, is to apply to fiscal year 23-24. So we're not putting it on 22-23?
Well, we are already in 22-23, so we've kind of foregone that process. What this attempts is to create a process for the future.
More uniform.
So just live with what we have for now?
You have already awarded a couple of,
But so anything beyond that, we'll have to make an independent decision. It won't be based on what we have.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Like under the medical plan, when you have an event with more than 500 attendees, you have to provide a medical plan. How do you know in some of these cases if you're going to have 500 attendees or not for your event? How's that determined?
we ask the organizers to provide those numbers to us as part of the application process. So it's an estimate.
But are attendees people who come to watch an event included?
Correct, yes.
How do you determine how many people are going to come out and watch an event?
Actually, I think our organizers have been pretty good at estimating that. There's a lot of events that we already know how many people approximately attend for 4th of July and such. But for smaller events, I'd say that the estimates that people have provided have been pretty close.
So we'll go on the word or the estimation of the person that's putting on or the organization that's putting the event on, whether there would be 500 or more people or less?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 7 show up, and they're like, no, it's.
I was trying to think of where I can't find my page.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead.
I've been saying for some time that, I mean, even if it's a nonprofit, and they're coming to the city for an event that benefits people, we don't know where their money's coming from, and that's why I've always said I want them to open their books. If you want money from the city, open your books, let's see how much you got, let's see how much you need, and let's work on this together. But I'm not doing anything until people voluntarily tell us. You know, we don't know if somebody's getting 50,000 here and 100,000 here, and they're flush with cash, but it's like, hey, Solvang's really generous, and we give away lots of money. So let's ask them for another 10 grand. I'm not doing it. So is that specific, that we know where their money's coming from before they ask the city for money?
Yes, so the way these policies are structured is that it specifically states that they have to provide details of the budget for their event.
Okay.
Are the numbers that are listed for the insurance requirements and specifications, those are standard amounts now? Minimum amounts, $1 million per occurrence and $2 million general?
Yes.
There's not a lot of policies that you can get that are less than that for commercial general liability anymore.
I was thinking more.
On public works projects, I'm starting to see those go up, but for just general CGL policies, it's still 1 million, 2 million. Where you're seeing some increases are in individual lines like medical expense. Used to be $5,000 no fault payments. I've been pushing for 10,000 on some of those,
Yeah.
but there hasn't been a lot of movement in that.
So everything in red is something that you're wanting to put in this?
Correct.
Making sure I have
It's
that correct.
redlined.
I wanted to, I'm trying to, there was a spot where he was talking about the parades and the routes. And I had asked to add the routes that we actually have, not the ones that are listed in here. So there's only one route in here that is the one that's actually used for Yule Fest. The other route, B, I don't know where that parade route came from, because that's not one that's ever been used here in the city. The one that we had for Danish Days is not in there, and the one that we used for the 4th of July is not in there.
Aren't those in the budget? Danish Days and 4th of July?
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, the plan, this is also part of the special event, and you're supposed to pick a parade route.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure that if you're going to pick a parade route, that it's ones that we actually use. I'm trying to find the parade page.
You're
108?
referring to our application itself?
Did I miss it? Yeah, in the application,
In the application? 108 has
Yeah, it's, I believe it's 114.
yeah, it was further than, yeah, that's not the one, yeah. It actually had listed 1 and 2, or A and B. Let me get to there. It's in the special event application part.
It's page
folks.
114, has parades, Route A, Route B, and
Yeah.
a new route.
So, so parades, does your event include a parade? If it is yes, then it says, if yes, which route will you be choosing? It has Route A, Route B, and then a new route. Well, Route A is the one that we use for Yule Fest. Route B has never, ever been used for anything. There's no route that shows what we use for Danish Days Parade. There's not a route that we've used for the 4th of July Parade typically, which is very similar to Route A, except instead of turning left on Alisal Road at Copenhagen, we turn right and go into the back of the parking, the Mission. So that route is not in here as well on the actual application, and I had asked that to be put in just to make sure that's corrected.
We can definitely modify it to include the Yule Fest, Danish Days, 4th of July, and then we also have a small route that goes through Copenhagen as well.
Yeah, we have the one that we're going to use for the veterans and that we used for the Pride, which was, Alisal Mesa Drive, up Alisal to Copenhagen and back. So I think we should have those parades in here because we actually already have those in place. We have mappings for them. And then if they want something different, because there's also the homecoming parade.
Would this also include the Rancho Parade?
Right.
It's a different
Which-
route.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's not one of the routes.
Right. But
It's where the horses go, though.
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate to have in there the routes that we actually utilize and have historically utilized, as opposed to them trying to come up with another route.
Yes, we can definitely make that clarification, also include the maps. That would be
Clarification.
useful.
Map would be very useful,
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, adopting this, so some group comes to the city, they've met all these criteria in here, we're still voting on this, correct?
Not the way that this is, well, yes, you would be, the policy, so we have two different things in this packet. There is the grant funding policy that we're really talking about today. If you would like to establish that policy for application and development of the 23-24 fiscal year budget. And then we have the guidelines that we were just discussing for permitting special events. So when it comes to the grants, yes, if this is the policy that you said, they will apply during that time period by March 31st, and those applications would be coming to City Council.
Okay,
for-
and they've met all this criteria, and then once they've met the criteria, then they come to the city council and we can vote on that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions or clarifications? All right, we'll take it out for public comment at this time. I don't have any speaker slips on this, so is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item? Item number 9. Seeing none. Do we have any left on Zoom? One person left. Hi, Nancy. We'll bring it back for final comments and/or a motion. Is there any final questions
I
or
have final
comments?
comments.
Go ahead.
Other than vets, Danish Days, Theater Fest, 4th of July, I would vote no on pretty much everybody coming for the city because it's not the taxpayer's responsibility. But I think this is a step in the right direction.
Any other comments?
Sorry, I meant to make vets, seniors, Danish Days, Theater Fest, and 4th of July. That's my focus as somebody who controls some of the purse strings around here. That's who I support. And after that, I'm sorry.
We may want to add Yule Fest in there because I think that's part of our.
That's.
But that's,
the city puts.
but that's our production.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Thank you.
final, anyway, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this special event grant funding policy for fiscal year 2023-24.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Caught Councilmember Clark over there. I heard him first, sorry. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Moving on to item number 9. We have any AB 1, 2, 3, 4 reports? We might in a couple weeks, or actually at the end of September, I'm guessing.
Do I have to report on Burning Man?
No.
I don't
You
want to
could.
report on Burning Man.
Burning Man? Burning Man?
All right.
If the city didn't pay for it, nope, we don't want to know.
So
That's funny.
meeting is adjourned at 8:23 PM. Thank you.